Hey, what's going on? It's Joe Rock, and very happy to have with me via Zoom the one and only George Thorogood. How are you today, George?
Always a pleasure, Joe.
So we're very psyched. I mean, look, you had to spend a lot of time at home. I'm sure you were missing the road. You're back out on the road. How does it feel?
Pretty much the same as it always does. You know, we generally take breaks between tours, and in the past we've had tours that lasted a year and a half, maybe sometimes a little longer. So getting back and getting onto it, of course, it felt great, but it's taking a little while to get in the swing of things. Get warmed up, so to speak. And we're not having a hard time getting warmed up with global warming, fortunately. So yeah, it felt pretty much the same. I went out there. The guys were great, and I struggled.
There you go. Well, here it is. It's September. One of the things that September is Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month. And one of the things that people are going to be able to see at all the shows is these new shirts, the Teal Destroyers logo, and then you got for the Muller Thorogood Memorial Fund on the back. And all the money for this is going to the foundation to bring awareness to ovarian cancer research, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and these
for research for ovarian cancer. We call it ROC, R-O-C, ROC.
Well, look, I got last year's shirt. I know you did this last year. This is a different shirt this year. I got this. I think it's great that you are very often involved in charitable causes. And it's as easy as buying a cool T-shirt. I know you also have the red shirts that I bought in the past. I forget which charity that was for. But I think that's a really cool thing that you get to do something you love and help out good charities at the same time.
Sinatra gives wings to hotels, because hospitals. Barbara Streisand buys wings to hospitals. We all do what we can.
There you go. Well, one of the things that I wanted to ask you about, because we had discussed this in the past, that when you were touring with the Stones, that they were very much like, look, you're part of the show. You just happen to go on whatever time. And just recently Charlie Watts passed away. Do you have any thoughts on Charlie being gone?
Let me tell you something about the Rolling Stones and Charlie Watts. I have the greatest rock and roll story in the world, better than anybody's. First of all, number two, I got to meet the Rolling Stones before I ever saw them play. How many people would say that? Okay. The very first thing, one of the Rolling Stones said to me was, "George, may I have your autograph?" And he had my album, our first album, and it was Charlie Watts. Now, I want someone to try to top that story. You think that's funny? I challenge.
I think that's great.
Who's walking to try to beat that? Because I grew up not idolizing the Stones. I needed the Rolling Stones. I mean, they gave me hope when I was a kid. The Beatles always represented freedom. Dylan represented truth, but the Stones represented hope. Hope. You see what I'm saying? And they gave hope for a guy. All I ever thought about was, boy, if I could sing like Mick Jagger and play my guitar like Keith Richards and get my hair to look like Brian Jones. That was the thing. So to meet the Rolling Stones and to have one of them even speak to me, let alone ask me for my autograph. I stood there, Joe, and Charlie had the album. He goes, here, and he gives me a pen. He was very prepared, very, very polite, as we all know. He's a total gentleman. And he gives me the album, and he gives me the pen. I have your autograph. I hold the pen. I'm like, yeah, it's George, right? I'm trying to keep my composure. I hope I spelled it right.
Well, the thing that I love about hearing that is, one thing that you told me once that I never forgot. I asked you what the first record you bought was, and it was The Last Time by the Stones.
Yeah.
So to have that experience.
I'm still working on that, how to play it. I don't like to rush into these things, Joe. Give me something to look forward to, you know. I had this single called "This Could Be the Last Time," and I didn't have any money in those days. I think it was the only record I had. And before I got 12 by 5 and the Rolling Stones now, and I had this single called "The Last Time," and I and my father would be the first ones up in the day. I had a brother in the Air Force, and another brother in military school. So and my sisters didn't have to get up for a while. So it was my father and I first when we got up. First thing I did was play "The Last Time" twice while he was in the bathroom. Then I went to the bathroom. And I came back and played it again twice. Then I went down and had my breakfast and came up and again played it twice. My father never said a word. So 16 years later, we're playing with the Rolling Stones in JFK Stadium. And my father, very, very right-wing, straight-laced, white-collar English gentleman, you know, not a rock and roller by any stretch. And I said, "What do you think of his dad playing with the Rolling Stones?" He goes, "They're not going to play Last Time, are they?" I think he had heard. Yeah, I never could believe Harry didn't come to my room and go, "Last time, last time. When will it be the last time?" That was it. I didn't even know he was listening. That's funny.
It's absolutely funny.
So on one day, I had two very, very groovy rock and roll stories when the book comes out. George Thorogood's Rock and Roll Stories. It's got a catchy title. What do you think?
Well, now you say that, I got to ask, have you thought about writing a book? Have you started writing a book?
I'll write a book on my book will be called George Thorogood's book, How It's Not Done.
Well, I don't know. I tell you, man, it's like, look, you've turned me on to a lot of cool music through stuff that you talk about and stuff that you covered. And one of the things I like is every time we get to talk, you usually send me back to YouTube to check something out. You've had me check out everything from Willie DeVille live at the Paradiso, which was amazing, to Buddy Rich having a drum battle with Gene Krupa, to so many different things.
That was heavy. You got to see the live version of Willie DeVille playing in Amsterdam, playing at the Paradiso. Have you seen that?
Yeah, that's the one I just said. You told me to check that one out. I love that. I'm so glad you turned me on to that.
Maybe the most underrated artist in rock history. Maybe it's Willie DeVille. And that video is just dynamite.
Well, you know, to me, one of the things I love is what you do, because I mean, you know, a lot of people don't realize this, and we've kind of discussed this in the past. If I remember this correctly, within the same week, you heard Hank Williams and Robert Johnson for the first time, and that set you out on your musical path.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out which artist was greater, and it's impossible. Nobody made their mark in the music world bigger than Robert Johnson or Hank Williams. Robert Johnson is the cornerstone, if I dare say, he's the cornerstone of real rock music. You have to listen to that. I listen to Led Zeppelin. They remind me of Robert Johnson with a band, in a way, in an offbeat way. It's there. And when I listened to both of them, I said, "Holy smokes! How can anybody be better than these two guys?" And so I thought, well, it's a song called "Moving On Over." If I could take Hank Williams' "Moving On Over," put a rock beat on it, and try to put Robert Johnson's slide on it, I might have some. So I was trying to combine both artists. And I said, well, you better hurry up and release it before Linda Ronstadt does.
Well, you know, that's one of the things that I love so much about your music. I mean, you take songs that other people have done sometimes and you turn them on their ear, you put a little more muscle behind them. And the songs that you write yourself are amazing. And then you actually just go out and do a no-nonsense real rock show.
So what do you want from me?
What I want to know is, go ahead.
Am I doing something wrong?
No, not in the least. Not in
Well,
the
what's
least. The question that I have is, when you go out and do this, do you see the fact that you're continuing all these years, all this craft? Do you see where everything connects? I mean, like, you connect to, look, I listen to music, I hear Hank Williams, I hear Robert Johnson, I hear the Stones, I hear Chuck Berry, I hear Bo Diddley, and I hear you. Like, you come through it all too. Like, do you realize that you're a part of this tradition? Do you feel that?
Well, listen, I say there's a school of rock, which I attended to, and people like Eric Clapton and Jeff Beck, Elvin Bishop, they went to the same school. I just looked at those cats and said, well, what did they learn from? What did Jimmy Page learn from? What did John Hammond learn from? So I said, I'm going to go to the same school as those guys. Those guys graduated with honors. I squeaked by with a C+. But I had the whatever to look and say, I say this, if you don't listen to blues, and I think somebody just said this recently, but I've been saying it for years. If you don't listen to blues, and the blues led to rock and roll. The first true rock artist was Bo Diddley. He took the blues and he made it rock. Chuck Berry took the blues and made it rock and roll. See, so those are the two most important guitarists ever, because they were the connection. They were like the day Wednesday in the middle of the week. You know what I mean? To get to the weekend, Wednesday, but you got to start somewhere. And those cats were the two that drew from that, put it all together, and then everybody else pulled from them. So I say, if you don't pay attention to the early stuff of the blues stuff, particularly Robert Johnson and people like that, and you form a rock band, especially if you're a guitarist, I said, you're not truly playing rock. Because when I go hear somebody, I hear everybody in Willie DeVille's music. He studied it. He worked at it. He's got that bad slide guitar, I would give anything to look like Willie DeVille. He looks bad. He looks like Bernardo in West Side Story, He looks like Zorro. I look like Leave It to Beaver. He's got the look and the sound. But going back to that, I don't think you're going to, I'm saying you'll never master it, but you have to study those things. I've seen people pop up with electric guitar and jump on the stage and start jumping all over the place at loud volume. And, and they think they're Peter Townsend. I said, wait a minute. Peter Townsend listened to Buddy Holly, and he listened to Eddie Cochran, and he listened to John Lee Hooker over and over and over and over to get together what Peter Townsend was going to be about, as they all did. And when people just bypass that or don't know it exists, I said, that's why rock is dead. That's why it doesn't exist anymore. As the band's coming out, it's like sometimes I hear, now there are exceptions. Jack White is brilliant. Joe Bonamassa is brilliant. Gary is brilliant. Gary Jr.
Gary Clark Jr. Yeah.
Yeah, Meb is all those cats. There's a few that did the right thing in the beginning. But they're few and far between these days. When we went to see the rock shows in the 60s and 70s, everybody did a Chuck Berry song. Everybody did a Robert Johnson song. Everybody was connected to that. Went to see the Cream, and they did I'm So Glad by Skip James. They did Crossroads by Robert Johnson. Every band had something in there. The Savoy Brown Band did Little Queenie, and they did that great version of The Boogie, and they did Don't Turn Me From Your Door by John Lee Hooker. And everybody was connected to that. The Animals, all. And I said, well, this is the stuff. You're not going to, it's like an actor not studying Shakespeare.
Yeah. No, believe me, I definitely hear it. And that's one of the things, that makes your shows good. I mean, you call it a rock party, and that's what it is. And you put all those elements in there that you mentioned.
Yeah. Blues led to rhythm and blues. Rhythm and blues led to rock and roll. Rock and roll lived to rock. That was the evolution right down there. So, once they, about 1965, 66, 67, and you heard like a Rolling Stone on the radio, and then and along came others such as Jimi Hendrix, Jeff Beck, people like that. Those guys listened and they took rock to a whole nother level. They took it to the level that we are aware of today. And once you heard that, I said, man, I'm sorry to say this, but once I heard Beck, and once I heard, of course, the Beatles and then Rolling Stones, hey, you get off of my cloud. When I heard these things, I said, I wish Leslie bore luck. I did.
You slid that right in there, man.
Not to knock her music, it was excellent for that day and that time.
Yeah.
I think it was Peter Noon and Herman's Hermits that said he wanted to go back to the theater after Herman's Hermits were doing their thing, and he asked him why. I believe it was him, and then he said why. He goes, when I heard Jimi Hendrix, that was it. So that was a lot of people. That Mike Bloomfield said he saw Hendrix play live and didn't touch his guitar for a year.
Wow.
Mike Bloomfield.
Hey, I was going to say, and that's Bloomfield. That's a pretty big deal.
The rock music was smoking. But when I was in high school, people thought Jimi Hendrix and Jeff Beck and Eric Clapton pulled that music right out of their hat yesterday. I had been listening to blues music and rhythm and blues way back. And I could hear Hendrix in there. I could hear the blues in Hendrix thing. I could hear you do Red House. It's brilliant. It's one of the greatest rock blues of all time. So when they came out and people were saying, oh, this, I said, well, it goes back a lot farther than that. I can see the connection there, from and most of the bands were like that. Well, I remember taking people to see a show one time, and the act was, I went to see Rod Stewart and the Small Faces.
Wow,
and they were playing, and the band coming off of them was Grand Funk Railroad. And we'd go to the Electric Factory often and see everybody. So I went there. I'd seen the Small Faces before, and I wanted to see them again. I was a Rod Stewart fan, as I still am, and went to see him. There was these young kids sitting there, and I said, I thought they were young, and they said, well, who's this band playing before Grand Funk? I said, it's the Small Faces. And I said, they said, oh yeah, where were they at? So they got Rod Stewart singing for them. Who's he? And I went, what? He used to sing with Jeff Beck. And these kids went, who's Jeff Beck? What? So I finally pressed it one more thing. I said, Jeff Beck played with the Yardbirds. And one of them went, who are the Yardbirds?
Oh, wow.
What in the world is happening? You got, see, in my day when you went in the club, you had to have credentials, baby. You had to know this stuff, or you didn't get let into the classroom. You dig?
Well, it's cool. Hey, look, I have to ask you this question too, because we've spoken before. You tell me about seeing a lot of these great shows, seeing Hendrix, seeing Cream, seeing seeing the Small Faces and Grand Funk. What was the first concert you saw that like lit you up and was like, I want to do that?
Well, I wanted that before I saw my first concert.
Okay.
Like my parents said, George, you should get into this rock thing. I said, yeah. I said, I'm thinking about that. I said, George, it's not you should want to do. It's something you have to do. And I said, yeah, like it's a passion, something I have no control over. And my mother said, George, you have to do it because George, you can't work. I didn't know which end of a shovel was up. Okay. The first rock artist I saw, if you can believe this, was indeed Chuck Berry.
Wow.
That did it. You see that, where are you going to go from there?
Really?
Yeah. He led off with Maybelline.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. He did School Days. Man, he was just brilliant. This was kind of before he got kind of funny when his live shows came out. And he was delivering big time. He was smoking. And I went back to school the next day and I wrote Berryism on the blackboard like a religion. And my Spanish teacher threw me out of class. He probably would have thrown me out anyway. But how was I supposed to go back to school after that and go to pledge allegiance to the flag and all, 40 push-ups and gym class and all that bullshit? I mean, And then I felt the same way about a year later when I saw Jimi Hendrix. That did it. I was like, I can't go back to that life. I never fit in life to begin with. So I have no choice in this. And it gave me a really good feeling, Joe. It really did. It gave me a really good feeling to know that, you know, that's the world I go. Where I fit in, I don't know. But hey, the Yankees need a bat boy. I'm ready. It's still the big leagues.
Well, you know what, you tell me, and it seems to me like you've really built your place in rock as far as everything goes. Because I mean, I think about it like this: like the last record was Party of One, correct?
I did a solo album, yes, of that type.
Yeah. So the last album was Party of One. So many other artists live and die by doing albums. Like they finish one, they tour for it, they got to start another one. I feel like you've just kind of like built your way and made your path so that you don't have to make an album unless you feel like making an album.
I don't have to make an album, period. You said I don't have to make an album. You said that I don't have to make an album?
Yeah.
That's great. Thanks. Hey, I'm free.
No, but I mean, like with that like pressure off in so many ways, I feel like if you make an album, it's because you wanted to make it. You were ready to make it. This was the record you wanted to make.
Well, what's your question again?
So my question is, you know, do you think about that at all? Do you think about making another record? Is that like, you know, because I feel like you've made
about making records since I was 15. You know, it never stops. Like Frank Zappa said that to me when we were talking. We were talking on the phone. And we both discussed that. He goes, that great Zappa voice down deep in his chest, you know, he goes, it's a disease, George. And he's right. It's an incurable disease that you always have. Even if you have no material, no record label, that's just the way your brain works. And once that starts, it never stops. For me, it hasn't. Anyway. Not that I say I'm going to do something in the future, but that's just something you're always, you know, you're always conscious of, you know, once you, like I say, once you flick that switch stays on forever.
Yeah.
The switch flicked me on. I didn't flick it on. I didn't choose it. It chose me.
Well, you know what? It just seems like it's been the right thing for you. I mean, I've been a fan since I'm in my teens. You know, it's like I heard it and I was like, to me, there's certain artists you just hear them and I go, that's a rock band. And it's like, so like I heard you and I was like, that's rock. Same as like I heard AC/DC and I'm like, that's rock. There's certain people when you just hear them, you're like, that's it. They get it.
I'm happy for you.
Well, George, I got to tell you, look, man, I appreciate you spending the time with us today. I know that you got a show coming up tonight. So just once again, if you're going out to see George out on the road, take a look at these shirts, special teal, with September being Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month. Buy one of the shirts. It'll go to a good cause. It'll help out with awareness. And, you know, just have a great time at the show. And George, man, I can't wait till you're in town and we get to see you.
Rock and roll never sleeps. It just passes out.